If you're like me, and you got no life and there's nowhere to go, then tune in to the Animation Truman Show. You'll be glad you did.
Oh yes, you will be so happy to be part of the Animation Truman Show tonight. And it should be a good time. Hey Max. What are we doing? Well, let me look at my notes up here on the other screen. Oh yeah, got a few things. I was gonna give you guys a little bit of a update on the musical score for Salt and Light Webisode 4. So let's do that. This has been an interesting exercise because it's probably the most flagrant Mickey Mousing I've maybe ever done, and I would say it's probably some of the better Mickey Mousing I've ever done. Something I don't consider myself particularly good at, but I'm getting better. And so I'll show you what I mean. In other words, the music is very it's interacting a lot with the video. So there's no voices in this at this point, other than what you're going to probably hear a little bit of from the recap, which at this point is actually the recap from the last webisode. So that's kind of there as a placeholder. But so I'm going to let this play. I'm going to just go ahead and let the music play, and you guys can kind of see what I'm doing here. So there really isn't too much that happens through here. And then it's just a little punctuation, really. That's pretty much it. So once the voices and the sound effects are in there, obviously the music's pretty loud. And the other thing is that it's a little dry. Because it's dry, I'm hearing 3 or 4 places where things aren't really sitting in the mix right. There's things sticking out like a sore thumb. But all in all, I'm happy with it. The interesting thing about scoring is that it isn't it's really very much less an exercise in composition than it is an exercise in orchestration. It's really the orchestration. I mean, if you pick it apart, the underlying music is usually very, very, very simple. In fact, I've mentioned before that there was one film I scored where the entire movie was essentially one chord. You know, it was one C minor chord through the whole movie. It doesn't always work. In fact, it usually doesn't. But, so in this case, there's a little more melody to it. But I'm just taking the opportunity to stretch myself a little bit and try to be more, just punctuate the action. And as I say, once the dialogue's in there and the sound effects, that music's going to be pretty low. And then we'll see how it mixes in. And hopefully it will seamlessly support the action. So we'll see. But that's what's going on with that. Do I want to save it? Yeah, let's save that. The other thing I wanted to mention, and by the way, hello Maria. You make the voice recordings after making the animation. Usually Western cartoons is the opposite. Absolutely. How do you mean dry? Through the previous webisodes, there's been about, let's just say it, with what you guys just heard, the reverb, the send to the reverb is at about 50%, when usually it's more like 85%. It's pretty, so the music is, or the instruments are, you know, they sound like they're in a fairly big room. In this case, partly because of the Mickey Mousing and the way I wanted it to sit in the mix, I wanted it to feel like a little smaller combo, like a smaller orchestra, if you will, and less room space. Now, it may wind up getting put back in. We'll see. It really is hard to say. In fact, when I finish that Mickey Mouse part, the next thing that happens is it goes over to Tianara and her mother scheming with Golik. And so the entire approach to the music is going to go back to more of a underscore as opposed to a less active role, let's say. Why did I say that? I may wind up, you know, making it more wet. We'll see. In musical terms, usually wet refers to reverberation. So I've got my tasty beverage. So what else is on the agenda? Well, just a reminder that I'll be doing that interview with Ed Hooks. Hey, Darren. On Saturday morning, everything seems like it's on schedule. Ed and I are going to do a Zoom call test tomorrow morning. He's in Lisbon, Portugal, so he's an American. I think he's from your neck of the woods, Maria. I believe he's from New York, and but I think it'd be fair to say he's sort of enjoying a retirement in Lisbon. So anyway, we'll test that out, and hopefully I'm sort of compiling some questions for him. So that's that. And I'm kind of glad you're here, Darren, because I have to confess, I spent a little bit of time today playing around with Futurama, the fan Futurama thing. Because I just wanted to ask myself, look, if you were going to do this and just release little webisodes, like the same thing I'm doing with Salt and Light, where you're maybe 1 minute at a time or something, if you were going to do that, is that a viable idea? And I was really, really shocked at myself to discover that I don't think it is. Not for me. I couldn't believe. I was really surprised at myself at how much I did not enjoy just drawing those characters. And if you were going to do it, it would actually be kind of a lot more work than Salt and Light, or probably any type of an anime type approach, for the simple reason that it's really obvious when you watch the episodes, and I wouldn't want to do it if it wasn't going to be authentic to the show. The thing is, it's really clear to me that while it is limited animation, what's there is 12 frames per second, and there are a lot of tweens. So you're really not going to be able to cheat the style of a show like that and have it be authentic. Now, there is on YouTube let me see if I can find this real quick. I noticed today, and this is probably not particularly interesting to anybody, I imagine, but I noticed today this very interesting, I'll mute it, but this Futurama space pilot. So this is kind of interesting. So I thought to myself, well, would it be viable to actually just do it as an animatic and, just kind of build on that sort of thing? Because this is really quite an interesting production where it pretty much essentially recaps the origins of the whole Futurama mythology, and apparently it's something that was on one of their DVDs, as a behind-the-scenes type of thing, or it was something that was never released. But even with this, I like I said, it kind of surprised me as I was playing around with it, like how much I'm not enjoying this at all. Like, why would I don't think I want to do this. So at least at this point in history, it does not seem like an idea that I would want to go too far with. Hey, Amar. How you doing, buddy? So, anyway, I'm actually killing my paint right now. So anyway, that was a bit of a surprise. And I mean, certainly anyone who makes the case that actually, it's funny you're here, Amar, too, because I always crack on you for trying to do too much, right? Trying to just having too many ideas, and I'm always kind of beating that drum of just focus on one thing and get it done kind of thing, right? And I do want to have that, I'll jump back here so you guys can see the webcam. I do want to have that conversation with you, though, Amar, sometime about the webtoon thing. But this experience with just playing around with the Futurama thing, and all I did was draw a couple of the characters. I did some ink and paint on the professor and kind of drew a couple drawings of Bender and Fry. I'm just like, is this, am I getting into this? And I really was surprised at how much I'm like, I just have no, because I just want to get back to my show, my thing, my style, my music, my characters, my mythology. And I think it's interesting from the vantage point of that conversation about webtoons, because for me, I'm going, okay, I'm sitting here telling people that this collaborative thing of sort of, if animating someone else's characters might be a way to sort of harness your creativity and, and also maybe have a baked-in audience kind of thing. But I hadn't considered how much a person might really not enjoy dealing with someone else's mythology. It just literally never occurred to me. Sounds kind of stupid, but I mean, I'm just telling you that's what I experienced. And Max, you're correct. The only reason to do it is because the soundtrack is cool, and I think the script's pretty good. It's a reasonably funny, episode. If I really wanted to generate some interest in that, of course I could just finish the soundtrack with some sound effects and even some music and actually release the soundtrack. Just say, hey, if people want this to be animated, sign up for a crowdfund or whatever. I don't know. Anyway, it was quite an eye-opening experience to sit here and go, I'm sitting here doling out advice to people, but when I sort of poked that creature with my stick, I've kind of felt like, ooh, I just want to do my thing, So there it is. Okay, so, but I still think it's a viable conversation to have, and for some people, it's probably a super good idea, actually, especially if you struggle with the idea of coming up with the idea. What am I going to animate? And usually fledgling creators, one of the things they struggle with the most is that, the idea that something is an original, which I think is mostly hogwash, because I don't think there really are any original ideas. And the thing is that, this is my belief. I believe that when you take an idea based on something you like, and you deconstruct it, and you start changing the details around and twisting it around, I believe that each person's unique creativity and personality and life experiences all naturally come to bear to sort of force you to create something that's going to be original, right? That's my belief. Other people may have a different opinion. But anyway, but you're right, Max. You know, just throwing something out there, whether it's a soundtrack or an animatic or whatever, would be probably a much better way, frankly, to build a YouTube audience than what I'm doing. But for today, I'm happy doing what I'm doing. I'm going to stick with what I'm doing for the moment. So, let's jump over here. Yesterday I did this shot of Carliana, and so basically what I'm doing is in the morning, I'm giving, I don't know, I'm going to say it probably was an hour and a half to working on the score for the Webisode. And now tonight, because I'm sort of unwinding for the day, is basically I'm just jumping ahead to some of the later stuff that needs to be animated just because it's fun to do. And I don't, usually in the evening, what I'm finding is that's not my best time to do scoring. I tend to do better work and enjoy it more when it's earlier in the day and I've sort of got my my creativity is fresh, you might say. And by the way, Maria, I did find you on Facebook, and I got your link. I tell you, that looks like a really fun and interesting group. Your theater group really looks like a neat and interesting bunch of, you know, good-looking people that probably put on some pretty cool, you know, theater productions. So, if I'm ever in New York, I'll look you up and we'll, I'd love to see what you're doing there. So anyway, I did this shot yesterday, and now what's going on is, that's just a quick reaction thing to the fact that the rain stopped, and now Golik's got to do some damage control. So he's basically saying, the dialogue is, friends, this wondrous rain was but a sample of what awaits us. Bring forth the future queen. Okay, so he signals to have Tianara come out, and then of course they realize, let's go back here. So he says, bring forth the future queen. So we'll be able to actually reuse, there's an earlier shot right here where he's sort of signaling with his hand when he had Vespar come out on the stage. But then of course they realize that Tianara's gone. So this is kind of, this will be fun to animate. Vespar's like, Tianara, Tianara, you know, he's sort of singing her name, and then realizes to his horror and chagrin that she's actually not there. And then this would be where you're sort of looking, the camera's sort of looking up, and this is where Golik comes in and says, what's going on here? You know, what's the delay, kind of thing. So what are we doing? Well, I'm going to run with this shot here. So what I'm going to do is put this, I think I'm going to stay over here in terms of a reference. That's what I'm going to be looking at. And, but I will say, Maria, by the way, you're pretty serious in that picture. You know, you really, I want to see a smiling picture. You look like, you're like the tortured creative, you know, in that picture. You know what I'm talking about. I want to see a happy picture. Happy, my friend. Happy. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to approach this shot from the from this vantage point. What I'm going to do, let me double check something here real quick on the other screen. So this is going to be shot number 605. So let's just save it right now. File, save all. And come on now. Come on, Tahoma. 605. And then before I do anything else, well, shoot. The problem is the output settings. If you change the output settings but don't actually render it, it'll forget the output settings. So I'm not even going to bother with that right now. Alright. So what the heck just happened? Z? Oh, I hit undo accidentally. Maybe I can redo it back into existence. That was stupid. Oh, come on. Come on. Well, I did save it a moment ago. Maybe if I just reopen it, it'll, let's see what happens, people. Discard the changes. What a dumb mistake. Okay, it's gone. All right. Okay, tell him. So anyway, what I'm going to do here is, I do know I need a new picture, but this one was taken by a sweet and lively photographer who's passed away, and I don't want to... well, that's understandable. I mean, there's a little bit of a feeling or an emotion there. It's attached to the picture, so that's all good. But yeah, definitely. It's funny because the Maria Torres that I found on Facebook when I did a quick search kind of looked like Fala, the slave girl that we had talked about, maybe you voicing her. And yeah, that was not you. All right, so what I'm going to do here is, and just keep hanging in there as far as the script for the voiceover, because it's on my list. So what I had, actually, I'm going to go ahead and shrink this down. Initially, I was going to maybe repurpose this shot, but I decided what I actually wanted to do was have a little tighter shot, not the close-up and not the wide shot either, just kind of in between, with Golik, and give myself an excuse to actually cut Vespar out of the shot. I may change my mind on that, though. I'm thinking a little bit about some of the acting that Vespar may be engaging in while Golik's doing his damage control, so I just really haven't decided. The sadist, sadist, got more popular doing animatics of other people's intellectual property. Well, yeah, and I think, you know, building on stuff that people are familiar with obviously is not a bad, it's never a bad idea to go in that direction if you're just trying to build an audience and you want to have the fun and challenge of, you know, doing your version of that particular intellectual property, just kind of like that. You know, I've done paintings or drawings here on YouTube of Naruto and gosh, way back when, Disney's Quasimodo, stuff like that. So it's all good. It's all good. Okay, so that looks like a pretty good Golik. I'm gonna save all while I'm thinking about it. Otherwise, Maria's gonna scold me for not saving my work. Which those scoldings are always welcome, because I've been known to be a little bit stupid about not saving my work often enough. Okay, so when I had the sketch up here, now I don't even know why I finished up his face actually, because what I thought I would do here, and I started to say about 10 minutes ago and never finished my sentence, as I often do, is the concept. The approach on this is this. There's a high likelihood that I'm going to wind up using secondary animation tools like the plastic tool to punch up the movement, and the goal is always to focus on the key. I guess in animation vernacular, the term key drawing is aptly named because you know, the key pose that best expresses what this shot is intended to contribute to the story. Okay, so what I'm getting around to is I want to approach this in this way. Let's just keep these really simple drawings, and we'll use as many as we need to figure out the acting that's going to take place, and then we'll kind of backfill whatever is or is not necessary to express that idea. So step one is with fairly simple drawings to just figure out what the idea is, right? And Golik's basic thing is, again, it's damage control. That's what this shot is all about. Damage control. Oh, there goes Valerie. Valerie, you should come and say hello. I've got the webcam on. She's like, she's kind of deep into writing her book. She's getting close to the climax, actually, of the third book in the trilogy, and I tell you, it's definitely got her attention. So, I don't want to squelch the flames of creativity over there. Maria says, "Hi, Valerie." Actually, she just stepped outside. The weather's gorgeous today, and so she's been hanging out outside quite a bit. So today the video contrast is really popping and it's showing more details than usual. Are you talking about my video? Or are you talking about something else entirely? Saddest. I'm going to look at that. YouTube saddest. It seems to me I remember that maybe from a long time ago, and we're probably going to get a bunch of noise here with a... Oh, I guess he doesn't have a trailer, which is kind of interesting, but... Oh, there it is. I've got it muted. Okay. Yeah, 2-point-some-odd million subscribers. That's pretty respectable. And... You know, I mean, I'm looking at the animation. You know, not bad. Definitely entertaining stuff. $2 million subscribers, 2-point-some-odd million subscribers. That's impressive. So, okay, back to work, friends. So let me look at Golek's line of dialogue. You're talking about your video. Oh, well, dude, yesterday. Yesterday I actually took the webcam and just turned the dial on it and put it in focus. So, yeah. The webcam is in focus now. Well, you call them animatics, but what I just looked at, I would not call it an animatic, even though, yes, it is an animatic, but it's also, for a lot of anime-type applications, it's as, other than color, it's as complete as the animation ever needs to be. It's clear the guy is a talented animator, as far as I'm concerned. Okay. So, there's Golek, and, again, what I was going to say... before I was so rudely interrupted by myself, is he says, "Friend, this wondrous rain was but a sample of what awaits us." Okay, so this actually should be fun. The "Bring forth the future queen," the next line of dialogue, I know for a fact is on the next shot. So I'm going to just play around with this a bit. Yep, I think I'm just going to do this as if it were purely a frame-by-frame animation. Whoops, darn it, come on now. Just because it's fun to do so. So I'm going to have him lean back. And again, we're getting into things that I'm not even thinking about the animation strategy. In terms of how many drawings or how much ink and paint we're going to do. I'm just thinking about, well, to use the term animatic, basically the animatic. So, this is one thing I've noticed about myself, and it seems to hold true with music composing as well, is I like to have the big picture in my mind, for sure. So in a sense, I come from the post-to-post school, but for the most part, I really seem to be a straight-ahead kind of guy. I like to say, okay, well, is this drawing grabbing me? If it is, let's go ahead and move to the next pose in a linear fashion, and then what I'm doing is I'm being vigilant to when it goes sideways, because it always does sooner or later. I'm just trying to describe here in real time what I've been observing in my own process, right? It almost kind of harkens to the concept of the visionary and the grunt, because the visionary is the pose-to-pose guy. You know, he's concerned about the big picture. But if the grunt doesn't make each little step in linear sequence work, both for me and for the audience, then it doesn't matter how good the idea is. You know, I remember one guy telling me, long time ago, I was talking to, I think he was a film distributor or something. And of course he didn't know me from Adam, and I was just trying to get a bead on the sort of the business side of the film thing. And one of the things he said to me is, he said, you know, there's a lot of things that can wreck a film, and you really only need one of them to happen for your film to be wrecked. And of course, being the know-it-all smartass that I was at the time, I said, well, okay, so all I want to know is what's the market value of a wrecked film, you know? And what I've learned since then is the market value of a wrecked film is zero. Or at least potentially it's zero. And that's the problem. I mean, you can have a film or a property that does so poorly that it's literally, you just can't make a penny. But if that happens to you, it really is your fault, and I say that as somebody who's done it. I've made films that were so bad, and they were bad for the worst reasons. You know, just like bad writing. I can make excuses. The one that's the worst, in terms of the most, I actually got the most budget to do it, versus the movie really was awful. And again, I could make excuses because, getting back to the collaboration thing, it was a case where there was an actor I had worked with in a previous film, and I knew that he was a writer and fancied himself to be a writer, and I really wanted to give him an opportunity to get a credit, you know, in a real movie. And so I sort of invited him to co-write the screenplay. And honestly, everything he contributed to the movie pretty much made it worse, because his sense of just what was compelling and comedy and all kinds of things just wasn't to the point it needed to be. It just wasn't. And he made a good effort, but so my great mistake with that film was that I tried to take what he had done and make it work. And I shouldn't have. I should have just scrapped it and tried to start completely from scratch. And basically everything that he had contributed to the plot, throw it out. And if I would have kept only the stuff that I came up with, I'm not trying to be arrogant here, but this is the truth of the matter. The only thing that makes this movie good-ish is the stuff that was mine, which was really silly, farcical, comedic stuff. But anyway, so this, I guess, is there a point to this? The point is that there are definitely dangers to collaboration, frankly. And at the end of the day, I'm responsible. I mean, it's my movie that is, you know, not that great. The only redeeming situation, or redeeming characteristic of that situation, is that if you unpack the distribution and revenue numbers, it turns out that the company that funded it actually made money. The only reason they made money is because the way basically the long story short is they needed to sell 8,000 DVDs at retail in order to make their money back. And I know they sold at least that many. So anyway, whoa, there's a lot of comments. I'm probably boring. Probably a lot of teenagers and kids. How do you enable multi-frame editing into Homa? I agree with you, Soda Pop, on your comment there. I think that's right. I think that funny is funny. You know, there's just no way around it. And if your content, it doesn't have to be great animation or great, you know, the universal experience is, you know, whether you're entertained by it, and certainly good comedy carries the day. And as you say, undeniable, that's a great word for it. Okay, so he says, Golek says, friends, this wondrous rain, okay, so it's the word sample. So he's going to say, friends, I'm feeling like he would see, I don't want to do a bunch of tweening, so I really need to just jump right to what the next key pose would be. So I'm just focusing on telling the story here, and I believe that he would actually put his arms back down, and that's basically the gist of it. Friends. Okay, and without a doubt, a little bit of a shift of weight there would make sense. So I'm just going to put a little something in there just to serve as a reminder that that's what you would do. Friends. I wonder, though, I really actually think that this would, I'm making a duplicate drawing. I want to move quickly here. I think that we should have a jump cut. Let's just do a jump cut here. And so he says, friends. And then it would punch closer to him. And he would say, this wondrous rain was but a sample. The word sample, I'm kind of feeling. Well, wait a second. Okay, if we tip that up like that, let's put the hand back up here. Let's just allow this, allow the acting to kind of happen here. This wondrous, yes, I like that. So he says, so it cuts to this, he says, friends. And then he relaxes and he says, this wondrous rain was but a sample. Okay, so this would be, so as you guys can see what I'm talking about, I'm using frame by frame animation even though the final animation may not be. Right? Because I'm going to use this quick and dirty drawing, low detail drawings, to figure out what the action needs to be, and then that will inform my approach to the final drawings in the ink and paint. And this probably, I like the turn of the head, but I think we need a little shift of the weight like that. Not bad. Not bad, friends. And now I am going to go ahead and draw another drawing here because I really want to, I think I want to push in on him. Just push it in a little bit. and I want to give a little bit of a smile. So bear with me while I... Okay, I'm gonna pop back up here. Soda pop. I know you can do it in Blender, and I thought there was a way to edit all frames of a level at once. Sorry to ignore your question, Amar. To edit multiple frames across your levels or layers in Tahoma simultaneously. I'm not sure where you're going there. Glad to hear it, Soda Pop. We're gonna test the Zoom call connection tomorrow morning, and this is obviously completely wrong what I just did. Yes. Boom, boom, boom. And this should be something like that. Okay, so now this is this would suggest perhaps maybe a lot of tweens. This is the problem when I just flow with the, you know, breaking down the animation. I tend to introduce more movement than is good for me. Man, I just snorted like a pig. Can you believe I just did that? I snorted like a pig. You know, like in Blender, you can go into edit mode and select multi-frame. Yeah, multi-frame was something that I believe in 2.81, etc. That was not in place yet, but the 2.9 series, it came into being. So what Amar's talking about, and as far as I know, I can't, I don't, if you could do it in Tahoma, I don't even know what that would look like. I mean, I can only assume that it might be something that would make sense with vector levels, but the only thing that I'm aware of in Tahoma or OpenTunes that's kind of like that would be when you're doing fill operations and you use the frame range option. So frame range works pretty well, and it's really just for coloring. So if you want to talk about editing, let me show you guys what Amar's talking about. What he's talking about is, and I may not, this may blow up in my face because I'm not a Blender 2.9 guru. But to edit all the points at once on all layers or selected layers across the timeline. Dude, I can, you know, usually if you needed to do that, that's going to probably be something that's of a corrective nature. In other words, you made a mistake. If I was going to do that, I wish we did have a capability like that in Tahoma, because it would solve a lot of problems that are weaknesses, perhaps you could say, of the plastic tool. So in other words, if you take a basically pixel-based drawing program and you say, well, what can I do that will allow me to make a global change across a sequence of frames where I'm changing all the frames at the same time? You kind of can do it with the plastic tool. Okay. So bear with me here for half a second. For some reason, I tried to run Blender. Yeah, I say a corrective nature, meaning that usually for me, if I bumped into needing that, it would probably be because I kind of got in the zone and did a bunch of animating and then realized that my character was a little off character, right? Kind of stupid, but, you know, I've done it. So let's just say, draw. Okay, so let's just draw an oval, and okay, so I'm going to draw three poses like a head moving or something. So what AMR is talking about is if you go into edit mode, if you think about the use cases here, you probably would have to be kind of creative to think about what the use cases would be. But multi-frame means that I can make a selection, and whatever I'm going to do, and I don't even know actually if the keys need to be selected. That I don't know about. But the idea would be that if I hit the G key to go, if you're doing multi-frame, presumably each of the 3 drawings would have the same edit. Now what I'm seeing doesn't look like that. So I probably am out of my wheelhouse here even trying to do this, but it's the idea that you could grab a selection and deform it or change it in some way, and that change would actually be applied to all the frames. Not, again, the use cases are kind of unusual. I mean, I don't think it's something you would need a ton of, but when it becomes important, only the layers need to be active. Okay, so the closest you can come to that, I would say, AMR, is this. Number 1, in Tahoma, you could use the plastic tool to kind of sort of make it work. The closest analog to that is actually in Krita, not Tahoma. And that would be a situation like this. So here we have Baldur's head, and it's animated, and we realize that there's something about Baldur that's wrong. Okay? There's limits to how far we can go with this, but it can be done. Let me grab, okay. And the way you do it in Krita is you would add a transform mask, and the catch is if you use a standard transform, you can animate the transform. But if you use liquefy, you could make a characterization fix on this guy, and then you can't add animation keyframes. Okay, so this transform mask can't be animated, but what it will do is it will apply that same deformation to all of the animated frames that are already animated with keyframe animation. Make sense? And so I actually had a situation, I don't know, it seemed like it was about 2 weeks ago, where this became absolutely useful because there were some legacy shots of Melchizedek where he was just off character. And the way to fix him, fortunately his head didn't actually move too much, but it moved a little. And by adding a transform mask and doing liquefy, I was able to apply a slight deformation to the entire sequence, and that did the trick. So I don't know if that fits your particular use case, but if I was going to try to do the same thing in Tahoma, I would actually just apply the plastic tool and then be real careful about adding plenty of bones so that I have plenty of control, and then I would go ahead and deform the thing. So hope that helps, my friend. Okay, so Golek says, friends, this wondrous rain was but a sample. What awaits us, okay? Friends, this one. Oh, I see. So he goes, friends, and then he relaxes. This wondrous rain was but a sample of what awaits us. And then we're going to push in to a smile. This is the type of shot, I'll be honest with you guys, this is the type of shot with the amount of animation that I baked into the idea. I could rethink it, right, to make this an economical, the execution as economical as possible, right? Because I'm just doing this instinctively where I'm going, well, if I just want to feel what the acting should be, what am I going to do? So I'm not thinking about the limitations or the amount of work involved in actually turning this into a finished shot at this point. What am I getting at? What I'm getting at is the way I've done this animatic, this shot would be better done in either Blender or Krita Either one of them would probably be a better choice than Tahoma. And here's why. Because in Blender, I would be able to tween this fairly easily, I should say, by just moving things around and then doing baked in interpolation keys. This part, maybe not so much, but certainly that would be true. But here's the killer: is when it zooms in, to be able to do that as a morph, basically, would be quite a lot easier. I mean, lot less drawing involved. Now, is lots of drawing the worst thing in the world? No. Let's go ahead and keep running with this. And I'm gonna go ahead and do this the hard way. So what I'm gonna do is put in these keys and then give myself a little guide. And we'll just put in one tween and see how it goes, okay? So if there's his, this is gonna be something like that. This is gonna be something like that. So it's a straight tween, nothing too fancy schmancy. This edge pretty much stays where it is. We're gonna have this border here. This is, so I want to keep this as simple as possible. The hand obviously is going to come down, so I'm just going to move it down like that, and now turn the onion skins off. And see what I got? So now here's what I have. See that? That works. I don't think there's any denying. That worked. So that's not a bad way to do tweening if you're going to give yourself a lot of drawings to do. This is not a horrible way to do it. I don't tend to like to draw with onion skins on a lot. But for quick and dirty tweening, I don't mind turning them on so I can at least find the key contours that allow me to preserve the, the drawing that I'm trying to do. Preserve the characterization, preserve the spatial relationships, yada, yada, yada. So it's, again, the rule is really just keep it simple at first, and this is what I said earlier about straight ahead animation too. What I'm doing is I'm being vigilant right now. I'm waiting to make a mistake, basically. When am I going to put in a line or draw a part of his body or whatever where all of a sudden it flags me, it like hits me and says, wait a second, he's getting off character, that doesn't look like Golik anymore. I'm constantly looking for that, because it will happen. It almost always happens. So I'm letting this little wrinkle become a little more prominent as it pushes into a smile, basically. Boom, boom, boom. Okay. Sorry, guys. I know that's probably obnoxious. Okay. Straight ahead animation scares you. See, I like it better. I have to say, there's something about it. I mean, I said the other day, I kind of made the list on, I think it was Saturday or whatever when I live streamed. But one of you guys asked me about in this progression from unconsciously incompetent, meaning I have no idea how bad I suck. I'm so ignorant that I have no clue, to consciously competent, where you understand how bad you suck, but at least you're becoming aware and you're seeing what you need to work on, to becoming consciously competent, where you're actually competent in your craft, but you still know what your weaknesses are and you're working on them, and then to becoming unconsciously competent, where you're a true master. In talking about that, somebody asked, well, where do you put yourself in each of these different categories of what it takes to create a cartoon? Scripting, voicing, animation, drawing, painting, editing, music, scoring, In that conversation, for whatever reason, I mentioned that I happen to think that this is where my strength lies. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. But I think I have a bit of a gift for just going straight ahead. And usually, like, when I sort of guess what the timing needs to be and stuff, I'm usually pretty close. You know, not always, but usually I'm pretty close. So it might just be me, you know. Some people some people can do things that I can't do, and so for me, straight ahead animation is usually more fun, and I would generally say it gets a little better results for me. But you know, but then, you know, I say that, and the next shot I do will be the exception to the rule, right? So these proclamations don't tend to have a great shelf life, if the truth be known. These proclamations do not have a great shelf life. How are we doing on time? Wow, I am an hour and 11 into it. Holy smokes, guys. Okay, so we got a little bit more of Golek's sort of, I mean, this looks more like Golek, and so does this, than this does. And unfortunately, this drawing prevails throughout everything I've done so far. So this is a great example where probably what would happen is I would be pulling something off the shelf that's a known good drawing of Golek, especially for a wide shot. But for now, I'll suffer the indignity of having to just kind of go in and try to fix a bunch of drawings here. But his eyes just don't feel like they're wide enough apart to me. So, and this is basically stupid. If I wasn't live streaming right now, I probably wouldn't even do this. Because I'm like, why would I do that? You know, I know that I'm only going to change the drawing one time. And this is all just going to be animated, right? It's going to be the same head through the whole thing. That's the nice thing about a procedural workflow. So what we have here, okay, gotcha. Here's what's going on. Yeah, we need to definitely have that edgy cheekbone thing going on. Gotta have the edgy cheekbone. And we'll give him some nice wrinkles here as he lays this obnoxiously syrupy smile on the audience. Let's try that one more time. So straight ahead is better for effects and frenetic animation. Typically character animation is a combination of suppose, pose, and straight ahead. Well, that's why I brought it up, because every once in a while, you know, you try something, or you discover something that surprises you, and that was kind of my point, is that for me, when I just go straight ahead, it's kind of surprising how often that turns out to get a better result. But it's not a rule. I mean, I've definitely had here, by the way, this, I'm looking at what things about this are off character now. B key. So yeah, in traditional, traditionally that's what Amar said there is basically what most people do say. Yeah, his eyes are sneaking apart there. Not horrible. Okay. Save all. Okay, so now think about what would be required from a timing standpoint. Better refer back to the script. Oh yes, okay. So we want to give him a lead in. half a second. Okay, 8 frames per second. I'm going to go about up to probably 12. No. Strike that. I forgot about the hands going down, so let's try that. Friends. Okay, that's way too fast. Friends. Okay. Okay, so he says this. Huh? So. Friends, this wondrous rain is but a sample of what awaits us. Okay, that all needs to be punched together. And I had one tween. Actually, I think I'm going to run those together too. But I think this last one, yeah, there's the one. Sample is where we botched it. So I'm going to go here. Okay. Once he goes to that, sample of what awaits us. Ah, there we go. Not bad. Not bad. Boom. Friends, this wondrous rain is but a sample of what awaits us. Not bad. There's one spot. Ah, sample. Sample happens just a little bit too early. This wondrous rain is but a sample. Up, still just a smidgen too early. I'm just using the voice to. Okay. Now we're okay. So this, I will say, let's stretch that out to 72 and probably leave her sit. Okay. Not bad. No, I'm looking at the script, so I haven't been seeing the comments. How far along is episode 4? You mean Webisode 4. Yeah, I covered it a little bit in the early in the live stream today, but basically today I got about half. I'll go ahead and divert away here for just a moment. It's all about the score at this point, and as I shared earlier, I'm doing more overt Mickey Mousing in this episode. I'm using way less reverb on, so it sounds like a smaller combo. So, but I'm totally allowing myself to not use a click track. I'm all the timing is fluid. There's a bad note in there I need to fix. But you'll see with Monkey how much. See how I'm kind of following the action and allowing it to just be a little more Mickey Mousey. And that was just a creative choice for the fun of doing it. You know, just challenge myself. So it's a little bombastic, like the music is a little obnoxious. It's a little, I would think you'd be like, wow, that's too Mickey Mousey. But I have a feeling once the sound effects and dialogue are in there, I think it probably is going to work pretty well, actually. But I might be wrong, you know. So I got about half of it, I would say, judging from the length of the video. Yeah, see, that's the video, so there's the end of it. So yeah, I mean, I got about half of it scored today, because I really wasn't I didn't completely do it all today, but I wasn't very far into it. So that's what's going on with Webisode 4. Once the score is done, it shouldn't take just more than a couple days to get the voices in there and all that. So okay, so now I have to think about this. We have to we're gonna have to do some tweening. Well, it is, yeah, Amar. That this particular webisode, at least the first half, with Mel. If you look at the end of Webisode 3, the last thing that Golik says when he's marching away is he says, "I'll deal with Asher later, but for now I have other fish to fry," he says. Well, the reason that's in the script, because when it was written, it wasn't being broken up into webisodes, and the very next thing that happens in the show is a fish jumps, in the water. So that's a little Spielberg type tie-in. Okay, so anyway, here's what I need to do. I need to think about what are we going to do here. Are we going to I don't know. I think we'll do it. We'll do the cut and paste thing, I think. So now I will just chillax a bit and enter the zone. I'm going to do a little ink and paint here, friends. We're doing that Alex Toth kind of thing. Okay, we cannot put... We can't put his mouth in because he's going to have to be talking, so... So we will willfully neglect the mouth. Now in Golik's case, we can give him his goatee because usually his lip sync is just a matter of the mouth moving. So as you can see, we're using a My Paint brush specifically because it's dialed in such a way that I can be certain that it's going to cover up the pencil lines, because obviously I'm doing this in a way that most people don't in OpenTunes or Tahoma, which is that I'm putting the ink and the pencil test on the same layer. You say, why? No reason. Originally, the mindset behind it was I wanted to say, look, if I am just doing a quick and dirty animation, I like the idea of being able to sketch, and when I know I've got something right, so let's make this like some really obnoxious big nose or something. Okay, so there's a big nose, and then you go, oh, that's right on. I can just hit the 2 key. And immediately, well, actually it should be the 3 key, but immediately ink it right now while I'm sort of in the zone and flowing with it, and then hit the 1 key and I'm back into sketching. Okay, so this is not the right idea for everybody, and I'm not saying it's the right way to work. I happen to find it kind of fun to work that way, so hence I'm sort of set up to be able to do that. I do the same thing in Krita by using the X key to toggle between the foreground and the background color. So it's all just, you know, at the end of the day, friends, when you're talking about animation, you're going to be working on this a long, 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 long time. So you might as well make it fun. Am I right? You might as well have a workflow that floats your boat, baby. Yep, what works best for you. I have no idea if anybody else does it this way. If they do, they're not telling me. Okay, so now, the thing about this shot that is most, jumping out at me is that really the ink and paint on his forearms should be separate. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to do this. I'm going to do this the same way I did the eyebrows yesterday. This really worked well. I'm gonna show this again real quick, just because it's not the most intuitive technique in the world, but if you're wanting to do a limited amount of puppet animation, it really can be an effective way to do it. And what I did was, in the case of Vespigi, what I did was I drew him, but I put his eyebrows out here off to the side, so that when I invoked the plastic tool, I could just use the skeleton to move the eyebrows over into position, such that I could then very easily just kind of go like this and put this little animation in. So I only had to do one drawing instead of like 4 or 5, right? Now you could make your work less by doing your 4 to 5 drawings, but put them on a separate layer, obviously. Obviously you could do that. But anyway, that's what I did. So discard the changes, go back here. So I'm thinking the same thing here. What I'm going to do is let the drawing guide me and just go ahead and draw this in here, but then I'll probably cut and paste his arms into a different position so that I can animate them with the plastic tool, because everything I'm seeing here could, all of this could probably be animated quite well with the plastic tool. And I guess I'd rather let the plastic tool do my tweens for me. It's not a rule. I mean, there's definitely a time to just do the freaking drawings. The truth is, it depends. Good evening, Tiny Salad. So, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to keep this kind of simple-ish. Simple, simple, simple. Okay, so he's got these bands that are gold, it looks like. So I think what I'll do is I think what I'll do is go ahead and hem that in like that, and then later I'll probably take the line out where it, you know, the juncture over top of the upper arm. So the only reason I'm doing it this way is because it's somewhat easier to draw, like anatomy and whatnot, if everything's kind of where it's supposed to be, where it was originally drawn. Now here what I'm going to do is just go hit the minus on the horizontal scaling so that I can, oh come on, I hate to wait till home it does that. Okay, so actually here, let's just go ahead and erase this. There's no reason to keep it around. Okay, and now I just want to check and make sure that this will work. Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit different feeling, but I don't think it's you know, I don't think it's particularly better or worse, just a little different. So we'll go ahead and do that. And so now what that'll allow me to do is take the forearms and actually move them off to the side and then use the plastic tool to dial them into place. And frankly, I may do the same thing with his upper arms. So in other words, the idea here would be to take... Okay, that was not supposed to happen. The idea is to have the torso sort of be a self-contained area that's bordered by these tassels. And so I hope this makes sense. You guys might be going, you know, it's always a tug of war between rigging and how that's going to save you some time on the tween side of things versus doing a lot of setup for, you know, it turns out not necessarily that much animation. So I'm going to take a quick break. And so I guess what I'll do is I'll roll this, let this animation loop while I take a quick break, and I'll be back in a couple minutes. And we will keep rocking and rolling. And when I get back, you guys, if I don't remember to turn the microphone back on, remind me, okay? Be back in a couple minutes. Oh, microphone's back on. Okay. Let's go back here. I'm just going to keep going on this track for a bit, and we'll see if it turns out to be a win. He's got his tassel things. Got to make these go all the way down to the bottom of the drawing. Doesn't look like he's got a seam. So sounds like Zuko's jabbering over there. So now in some cases it would make sense to actually split the head off too, but in this case I don't think I'm going to. I'm gonna boy, I guess what I'll do is just give him a nice simple upper arm, and then I'm just using that as a guide. Whoops, that's not what I meant to do. This is one of those things that I reserve the right for this to go badly and turn out to be a bad idea. Again, it's the tug of war between, you know, doing extra work to set up a rig versus, geez, man, just redraw the darn thing a few times, right? And I don't think there's really a right answer. It just depends on the shot. So I'm gonna give it a crack and see what happens. Okay, and I'm not separating the head because I'm thinking that the plastic tool will give me the bend and the squash in his like neck and shoulders that I want. So E key needs to be in selective mode, like so. And I don't particularly care about the colors all being right at this point, frankly. Okay, looks like we got a leak there. Oh, I see it. Boom, boom. Zip back out. Fill that. Whoops. Looks like we got another leak. Where the heck's the leak? Ah, there it is. Boom. Close that up. Fill that. Fill that. Fill that. Like I said, we'll see if this turns out to be a bunch of extra work for no good reason. Boom. Fill. Oh, come on. Leaks all over the place here, friends. Leaks, leaks, and more leaks. Did I get it? Looks like I did. Okay, but that's the wrong color. So that's got to be red. Okay, so like I said, I don't care about the colors at this point. I can change them in post, as they say. I just want to get the basic color-ish blocked in so I can then do what I want to do with this thing. Okay. So let's just give this a crack. And normally I would probably say we'll just take these seams out. By painting over them. Probably here we could do the same thing. Will it work? Will it work? Let's find out. Boom, boom, and build this. I'm not particularly thinking through the skeleton at this point. I'm just kind of playing it by ear. Probably we want to have something like this. Just a little bit of... Oh, let's think about this now. If this whole bit oops. Hello. How are the ink and sketch on the same layer? Oh, thanks, Sifter, for the mic thing. I did remember. I just, like I said, when I did the pencil test with this my paintbrush, and then I just did the ink with this other my paintbrush that is kind of dialed in so that I know it's going to cover up the pencil line, which is often problematic in OpenTunes and Tahoma. So that's just kind of how I do it. So now what I will do is go into animate mode, and I want to turn off keep distance. And then what we're going to... I'm sorry, I just turned it on like a silly goose. Oh, that's not good. That's very, very, very bad, in fact. That's bad. That's super bad. Okay, that's my fault. Stupid mistake. Means we're going to completely have to regenerate the mesh. So let's go here. Darn it. And I can already see where some of the seams are going to need some, let's say, amendment. Okay, and now here I've got to go X and regenerate the mesh. Okay, cool. Now let's go into build skeleton mode, move that to there. You want to have two nodes so that you can rotate things, right? Okay, I can see something else I'm going to want to do. I'm probably going to want to put this a little higher up here. So you guys can experiment with this type of an approach yourselves and see how it goes for you. But now, as you can see, we have the ability to... Normally, once you get the basic positioning right, you're going to want to turn keep distance back on. But you can see where some of the seams are. But we can always fix those. And that's going to be very problematic. So, yeah, I hate to say it, but you know, it's... I'm kind of regretting taking this approach. I don't think this is actually the right idea at all. But, you know, what can you do? You try. Because I'm already having to do stuff that's of a corrective nature, like this. And look at that. See, that's where the plastic tool just really falls apart. The plastic tool, the algorithm, I say, so that didn't work. The algorithm is dubious, to put it mildly. So I'm gonna say, flush it, forget it. I don't like this. This isn't working. This is the wrong approach. And so we're just gonna go back to the old school way. Sorry. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. In this case, it's just not feeling good. And this whole bit, the biggest problem with it is actually what you see right there, where to make something like this work, the only way that really works is if you draw it anatomically correctly, use that as a guide, and then move things out of the way. Because if you don't do it that way, at least for me, I'm going to completely botch the anatomy every time, which I did in this case too. So it's like, okay, it is what it is. The next, yeah, so I would say, so now people are weighing in with comments because, yeah, Afui moment. Well, you're going to have them. I mean, you know, it is what it is. So I'm going to move that over there. What, if there's a lesson here, it's that if you're going to go rigging, okay, if you're going to go rigging, you want to really know what you're going to do before you go and start animating things. Because the problem you're going to have is, in this case, the opposite. If you're not going to do the rigging thing, then you really want to have all the animation figured out with the pencil test before you do ink and paint. Otherwise, you're sort of baked into this like tight inked drawing kind of thing, knowing that there's going to be a bunch of stuff that you have to fix. Like right here, I got to go in and fix this little bit right here. And it just becomes a real, you lose the fun of just fluidly drawing, right? Because you're taking something that doesn't quite work and you're trying to make it work. Because you don't want to throw away something that's kind of half done and kind of works but not really kind of thing. So in this case, the better path probably is to just delete a lot of it and go back with the pencil and get the drawing back in there, you know, looking halfway decent. So, sometimes you try stuff and it works, and sometimes you try stuff and it doesn't work. In this case, I think I bit off more than I can chew, for no good reason. Because this is actually a good illustration of the case where it'll turn out that the rigging-based approach is going to wind up actually taking longer, and you're going to wind up with a result that just doesn't really look that good. And so now I'm going to wind up with a shot that I'm going to redo. Well, what good does it do to do the whole thing and then have to redo it, you know? So forget it. All right, so in this case, actually, to tell you the truth, I'm gonna make a even bolder step here, which is I'm gonna erase everything, put this here, S key, paste this back in, and just go back to, okay, so he's, as I recall, he leaned back into that, so. Well, that's a little embarrassing. Sometimes you make mistakes and feel like a silly goose. Well, that's okay. Who cares? It's my cartoon and I can be a silly goose if I want to. Well, and it also underscores where if you're going to do either pose to pose or straight ahead animation, while you're doing when you're blocking it in, you really want to keep the drawings real simple. Now in this case, let's put in one tween. What the heck? Let's make a duplicate. And there he leans back a little bit. So what I'm going to do is, this would be more my straight ahead approach. I'm going to actually move this back a little bit. Just split the difference. Boom, boom, boom. Okay, and then you could turn on the skins if you want. That's where we're going to end up, so fine, no problem. Let's just go like this. And I'm going to do that kind of thing where, well, it's basically easing is what it is, but when I do tweens like this, I tend to want to do a small change that sort of tricks the eye into knowing that something's happening, and then snap to the new position. See, there you go. So now that's perfect. I mean, basically. And I can use cut and paste to, if I only want to draw his face once, I can do that. And so here we're going to do the same thing. Let's do a duplicate. Just get a little bit of a moving out here, small move. So I'm putting the center point there, small move. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is actually work up now from the forearm and grab the entire arm so that the whole arm starts to fall. Hope that makes sense. So if I'm doing straight ahead, that's what I tend to do. I tend to work out from the smaller body parts to the larger. So now what we'll do is we'll make another duplicate, and now in this case I can probably, because the arm's got to completely disappear, so now we can go ahead and make actually, you know what, I'm actually going to just take that out and redraw it. Something like this. Again, this is what I'm talking about, keeping it simple. I just want to make sure that the motion is feeling kind of about right. There's the... Okay, and this one, we'll see how this goes, but whoops, that's not what I meant to do there, Jack. S key, grab that whole bit. Get that falling down out of frame. This is only on the screen for one frame, so. Yeah, see, there you go. Easy peasy. Boom, blomp. Okay, we've salvaged it. Got a little more work to do on the ink and paint side, but that's okay. I guess you find the sticks and balls for the pencil test to get the animation down quickly. Well, that and the whole way of tweening. I mean, I just have a way of tweening that I like. It seems to fit the feeling of the show. And it's always the same methodology. Seems to work pretty well. Which, as I said, it's... Okay, so you're going from this to this. So what you're doing is you're waiting until you're close to this. And then you make a small change, and then it snaps to the new position. So now it's a hold, small change, bigger change, boom. And when you play it, it feels good. You know, at 8 frames a second, it just tends to work. So, okay. So here you're going to have the same thing. We're going to cut to the close-up, and then we've got to get to this. So this would be okay, that was not supposed to happen. Undo. We're going to here. Sorry. Here. And so what we're going to do is hit the D key, make a duplicate. This will be a small change. Boom. Boom. And then I'm just going to hit the S key here and grab that. Go back to this drawing. S key, Control V, and then move it up. And then that should do the trick. Okay, cool. This, I don't really need a tween for this, but I'll put one in just for kicks and giggles. So he's going that way. And so you can see his whole body weight is turning a little bit. And the head's coming back. So the body goes one way, the head goes the other. So let's go ahead and do that. Boom, boom, boom. Little change so it can snap to the new position. And blump, blump. Now the body shift, we're nitpicking here for sure because it doesn't matter too much at the end of the day, but I'm going to make that slightly different. Okay. All right. And just for fun, we will also make a duplicate here. Just, we'll drop the hand like this. And then we're going Okay, so his head's turning. So what I'm going to do is I just want to get a slight suggestion of movement here. This is just kind of a trick. A bit of a trick frame where I'm just going to make a small change to just trick the eye into seeing that something's happening. I already made it a little bigger. So just a little something to smooth things out. B key. There we've got the hand, and here obviously that can come down. Again, it's just a suggestion. And let's see what we have, friends. Save it. Oh, waiting for Tahoma to save. You know, it's amazing because, you know, it looks pretty good and no fancy schmancy digital tools required. At the end of the day, it just boiled down to doing the drawings. So, and you know, I have to say, the shots that I do this way, I'm giving myself a little more ink work to do, but you know what? I know the shot's going to look good, and that's the most important thing. You know, get a couple eye blinks in there and get the lip sync in there. You could even take it a step further if you really wanted to push it. Let's do it. Let's push this. Let's hit the S key, select all. I'm hitting Shift Alt to make the whole thing bigger. And now what I'm going to do is actually rotate it even a little bit more. And then I'm going to... Oh, come on. Seriously, Tahoma? Okay, see, Tahoma just did... Don't want to get snarky here. But Tahoma just did a stupid. Maybe I did the stupid. I don't think I did in this case, but maybe I did. We'll just keep moving forward. Okay. Now, what I wanted to do before I was so rudely interrupted is I wanted to just push that up a little bit. Mr. Cheery. Golik is nothing if not always pleasant to be around, right? Okay, not bad. Okay, now the only thing that's bugging me is, again, a bit ridiculous because his characterization really isn't quite right here. So now I gotta figure out what the heck. I mean, okay, so if you're gonna chime in and say, you know, that doesn't even look like the same guy there, Dave. Believe me, I'm aware. Yeah, I'm aware. So I'm just going to, seems like his eyes, I'm going to just erase his eyes in this drawing. Starting to make faces, as animators are prone to do. So I'm going to have to make some slight tweakages on all these other drawings. And again, they're just going to be duplicates that are cut and pasted anyway, so I don't think it makes much difference. In other words, this drawing isn't quite right, but I only have to fix it once. That's all I'm saying. So this here probably looks a little more accurate to what it should be. Yeah, the eyes are a little wider apart, and we're missing this sort of bridge of his nose kind of thing. And here, the mustache probably needs to be a little higher. That's better. I think that will suffice. And then we'll just backpedal this fix into the other drawings, because if you're going to fix one, fix the big one, because then you can just shrink it down for this. So, no big deal. I'll make it work. I promise. I'm looking at the comments. Amar's yeah, well, in my experience, with absolutely no exceptions ever, and for me, every time I ever try to do a complex rig, I mean, rigging is a beautiful art all its own. Nothing wrong with rigging. Obviously, in the CGI world, it's critical. What I've found happens is you really do a lot of work to set up the perfect rig, the ideal rig, as you say. And then I guarantee you, the very first shot you go to use it in will be the exception to the rule where the rig doesn't quite work. Now in 3D, you're less likely to have that happen because you're going to create an exhaustive, comprehensive rig where, you're starting with a neutral position of the character and it's thoroughly tested and, from all angles and all directions. I'm talking about setting up a rig in 2D. When you do it in 2D, where you're basically locked into a certain structure, and or like you would do in Anime Studio Pro, where you would actually have a switch layer, and then you're going to do a character turnaround, and so essentially you're going to set up 5 rigs typically. You can usually get away with 3 to 5 rigs because whatever you do, you can flip. So if you do 3 rigs, you've really got 6, right? Which is going to be pretty much a profile, a 3/4, maybe a less than 3/4. So there might be 2 of them that are like 3/4-ish. Kind of like what we have here. Basically, we've got a 3/4 face that turns into a, not really a straight on, but it's not really a 3/4 either. So this would be a more proper 3/4, whereas this is kind of somewhere half in between. So if you're going to do the 2D rig thing, you're going to have front, maybe a little turn, 3/4, profile, and then you can flip everything. So you're going to have at least 4 rigs. But then what happens is, what can happen is you have to have it broken up sufficiently so that every contingency is taken into account. For example, what am I going to bake into his face? Am I going to bake the eyes in? Well, no. If I'm going to do a comprehensive rig, in Anime Studio, you're obviously going to have a shape like this that acts as a mask, and then the iris and the pupils are actually going to be a completely separate layer, but they're going to be masked by the skin of the eyelid, for example. And so just to do an eye, just the eye, is going to typically use at least a couple layers. And then you're probably going to want to have an articulated eyebrow that's got a couple bones attached to it. So it really comes down to, is it worth it? And it's a crapshoot. What I've found with this project certainly is that minimal rigging, unless it's something that can be done really quick and dirty, that allows you to get a little bit of subtle secondary animation on top of what's basically a frame-by-frame animation. That's also a minimalist frame-by-frame animation, where kind of in anime style, I'm thinking about what's the single pose that best expresses the idea of the whole shot, which in this case would probably be this one. And then it takes a fairly minimal amount of tweaking around to get from this to this, or going forward to this, right? So really that's the shot. This is technically a separate shot if you really want to think of it that way. But it's working, you know? It's working. You know, it's a bit embarrassing to admit, but it's amazing. It's amazing how much time you can waste trying to find ways to leverage your work so that you can save time. Now think about the irony of what I just said. You waste lots of time in the quest to save time. And I think probably a lot of experienced animators would concur with me on this one, that you really need to be all in that approach, you know, sort of the rigging based approach. You need to be all in with it if you're going to do it, because if you're going halfway, which is pretty much what I did here today with the plastic tool, you know, it's kind of a half in, half out approach to a rigged character. You're going to wind up spending a lot of time probably for not a big payoff. Now, if you're not that great at drawing and you don't care to be, then it probably makes a lot of sense to get real good at rigging. So you can take your time and get one drawing that's right, and then get as much animation mileage out of it as you can. I kind of do that by just pulling, well, I actually just did it. If we go back here, like this shot right here, what I did was if we go to my extras folder, I actually just pulled up one of these drawings of Golik that's I did quite a long time ago, actually. It's probably this one. I just dragged and dropped that into, I think, Tahoma. I don't remember if it was Tahoma or Krita, but, and I really should do that here too, where I am, you know, comparing. This is going to be embarrassing, right? So, and this does underscore where maybe it's not worth killing yourself to even get the characterization right. Just focus on the movement, because at the end of the day, it's really not that big of a job in this case to set the center of that like that. Now we can use rotation, blah 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 blah. And that's what I did. I basically took that drawing. I think I did it in Krita though, because no, actually I don't think I did. But anyway, I just drew the hat over top of it. You know, I just drew the head over top of it. So here you're just talking about smacking that drawing into it, sizing it correctly, and you're good to go. Now the main problem with this little drawing sequence is that his expressions are fairly baked into it. I mean, there's a lot of very distinct expressions baked into it. So what happens is you wind up having this image sequence grow over time, where you keep adding new drawings to it to add different little subtle expressions. You know, in this case you might, and this would be better done in Krita because you could use liquify, but this big smile he has at the end could be done quite readily with the plastic or the liquify tool in Krita. Just mush it, add it to a new drawing, and you're good to go. So in practice, when I get sort of downstream on a shot like this is actually what usually happens. Is I'm going, why am I gonna like kill myself? You know, I've got this drawing and or, as you can see here, animation of Golek that's already done. And it's not like his face has changed. So anyway, I think with that I'm gonna wrap it up for tonight. So Amar posits that you can do an ideal rig in Blender, AE, or Moho. Yeah, you can. So in regard to your sticks and balls comment, you know, kind of. If, you know, in this case, this would have been a good candidate for that for sure. You know, just sticks and balls to just get the movement blocked in. It used to be more sticks and balls, and lately it's more get one pose and then either work forward or backward to get to the other places where you need to be, which is usually a matter of doing what I did, where you just select a little piece of it and move it around and just make it work. Maria says, I think you could get better at drawing and staying away from rigging while I practice. I think I could get better at drawing and I'm staying away from rigging. I think that's good. Oh, well, taking my advice. You know, here's the guy that he set out to do the rigging thing and showed the whole world what a spectacular failure it was in this case. But that's not the fault of the software or anything. So let's be clear about that. But, you know, I think this is the quest of the independent animator. You know, you're always walking that tightrope between, you know, you want to leverage prior work because you don't want to have your characters drift off character and stuff like that. So you want to be consistent. So that's the case for reuse, is that I know I can pull this head into any scene and I know Golek's going to look like Golek. Okay, and if you say, well, that's because you suck as an artist and you can't draw your own characters consistently enough. Yes, absolutely. Guilty as charged. But pragmatically speaking, what are you going to do about it? Well, reuse is usually the answer. But reuse to the point where it goes to the next level where you're talking about rigging and all the rest, I haven't really seen the payoff. And plus, the part of the tightrope we're walking on is that you just like to draw, right? So it's probably best to give most of your time and energy to the drawings that have to be new. What drawings have to be new in this case? Well, the drawings that describe the motion, right? So it doesn't make sense to kill myself on Golek's head, because his head is well established and it's been drawn once and it's not going to change shape. But the movement, that's where you want to, you know, maybe give your energy to. That is a better use of your time. So on balance, though, this is a good looking shot, and it's going to be a good looking shot, I can tell. It's just the caveat is I probably need to go ahead and bring that Golek face in here, even if only as a guide, right? If you're going to criticize me, the thing to criticize quite justifiably is, why don't we have a complete library of turnarounds for this character, where we've got not only this slightly off straight on shot, but we've also got a proper 3/4 and a proper profile that can be reused over and over. And the answer is absolutely. I probably, probably should do that. Have you done that in your project? Because it's probably well advised. Okay, and with that, I think I'm going to sign off. Yes, volume and dimension. Kitty Cat's editing. Right, kitty cats can do that from time to time. So, hey Tom, you know what, Tom? This is a throwback to the old days when I think it was you that kept showing up just as I was finishing, and I'm afraid that's the situation we have here tonight. I'm about sick of working on Golek. So I'm getting ready to sign off. Hope you don't mind. But hi. But yeah, I would say this shot came out quite nice. And it's going to be a good looking shot. And truth be known, it probably will wind up looking the best if, other than stuff that really truly is so rigid that it just doesn't make sense to draw it twice, probably it'll turn out to go ahead and do extra inking sort of repeating myself, so it gives that life and variety to the animation. Make it look a little more anime. I mean, I don't think there's any debating that. So, anyway, so with that, if anyone has any last minute questions, comments, whatever, then shoot them at me, and otherwise I'm going to wrap it up here in just a sec. File, save all. And it looks like we're good. So, friends,